I'm more than excited to be here and have this opportunity to address you tonight. When Ruth had contacted me, I originally was not available. I've been taking on Wednesday evenings a ham radio license class to further my skills in emergency management, but I recognize the importance of this because I think that this presentation about the history of the fire department can dovetail into a conversation and a good opportunity to get some facts out about our recent land acquisition on Railroad Avenue. So I rearranged my schedule. I have a very capable individual at class tonight taking copious notes for me. So here I am. Again, Travis Irons, I'm the fire chief in Plainfield. I hold and wear a couple of different hats, which I'll tell you about. On the fire department side of things, I've been involved in the fire service in the town of Plainfield since 1999. I served previously in Central Village for 17 years. I made it to the rank of deputy chief over there. An opening happened in Plainfield where they were looking for a fire chief. I went over there in 2017, and that's where I've been ever since. So in that time, I've been certified as a fire officer. I'm currently certified as a fire marshal, and I'm the deputy fire marshal in Plainfield. I serve under the fire marshal. I've been an EMT for 20 years now. So any significant incident that's happened in the last 23 years or so in the town of Plainfield, chances are I've probably been there. My regular employment is I'm the operations manager of the Regional 911 Dispatch Center that's in Killingly. We're in East Killingly, located on 101 at a former Catholic chapel that the diocese decommissioned and sold to us. We were previously located at Troop D in Danielson, and we moved to East Killingly in 2012. I've been employed there for 21 years. I got that job when I was in college. I've went through the ranks of regular dispatcher to dispatch supervisor. Now I'm the operations manager, which I've had that position since 2016. Up there, we answer 911 phone calls for 20 municipalities, and we serve 43 fire departments. So if you think of that in terms of area, we take all of the 911 calls between the Mass line and Salem and the Rhode Island line out to Willimantic. So it's about 140,000 people that we answer 911 for, and of course everybody that traverses in and out of that area in the course of a day. We take about 60,000 911 calls a year and close to 100,000 administrative calls. So the dispatcher is very, very busy. Like I said, I'm the operations manager, so I oversee the day-to-day operations of that center, scheduling, personnel issues, and stuff like that. But the best part about that job is I'm the direct conduit to all of the different fire chiefs in all of those agencies throughout Northeast Connecticut. So I have a network of seeing what works in some fire departments as opposed to what doesn't, and I have a great opportunity to connect people and network, so that's great. And then I had mentioned just prior to COVID and then during COVID, I got certified as a fire marshal, and I had an opportunity to join the fire marshal's office here in town. So certainly very, very busy, but I enjoy it. I'm 40 years old. I live on Green Hollow Road. My wife is a teacher in Wyndham, and I have an 11-year-old son who's fluent in Spanish. He is, so I do want to start with some history, and then kind of transition into present day, and end off with talking about our land acquisition on Railroad Avenue. I will say that I have a tremendous resource in my fire department, Carol Gersick. She's been doing an incredible job of tracking down and compiling all of the history of the department. We have some very long-serving members, some tremendous, tremendous people in the department that have seen so much, and we recognize that we need to get them to record that so that we can, commemorate it and pass it on. So Mrs. Gersick has been working with Ruth to compile some of that information. I do have some of it up here, which you're more than welcome to look through. I pulled out the high points and what I'm going to present tonight. And then I have a mix of some of our modern firefighting equipment. Not knowing how often you may or may not have an opportunity to get up close and personal with this stuff, but it's certainly anybody who's had family members in the fire service from a long time ago, you'll see that, and I can explain that the equipment that we use here now is very advanced compared to what you may be familiar with. And I do have my water up here because I know that my throat will get scratchy. So organized fire protection in Connecticut, as well as some of the other very essential community services such as clean water, sewer, and street lights, all have strong ties to the foundation of textile mills in the late 19th and early 20th century. And the village of Plainfield is no different in that. Fundamental to this was Harold Lawton. That gentleman was born in England and he immigrated to the U.S. in 1872 as a 21-year-old. He worked in several local and distant textile mills before becoming the superintendent of the Baltic mills in Sprague. While superintendent there, he had a vision to construct his own mill in Plainfield. It's said that he selected Plainfield as a location because he viewed it as the center of manufacturing as it relates to the ease of shipping. Land was purchased from the Robinson and Fowler Foundry, and the land was situated along the established, at the time, Norwich and Worcester Railroad. Work started in 1906 through 1907, where they constructed a 3-story, 105-foot by 255-foot structure with a 150-foot smokestack for steam, which powered the mill. At that time, I've read that they employed 300 people. In 1908, they had plans to double in size and increase the level of employment to 550 people. Lawton Mills prospered under Mr. Lawton, who was the majority shareholder of the Lawton Mills Corporation. And from what I've read, that was in large part to very good management. I've also read that he elected not to have a mill store because he wanted local merchants to be able to benefit from his employees purchasing goods and services from them. The final phase of the expansion was from 1911 through 1912, adding a second brick structure. An article in the Wilmanic Chronicle called the Lawton Mills the prettiest mill to be seen in the area at the time. With the flourishing mill came housing for the employees, and a lot of that housing is still very much intact, and we can recognize it as the old and new villages in Plainfield. Mr. Lawton also headed up efforts to install clean water lines, sewer, and street lighting for his workers' villages. The mill's steam-powered electric generating plants are what kept the lights on. The exact date is unknown, but as a result of the mill, the Lawton Fire Company was formed primarily for the protection of the mill and also the mill housing. Lawton Fire Company was quartered out of 48 Railroad Avenue, which that structure is still standing today and can be seen as the Nirvana Salon. Lawton Fire Company was only allowed to fight fires within a 1-mile radius of the mill. So as you can imagine, the growth of the Plainfield village pretty rapidly exceeded the allowed response area of the Lawton Company, and they couldn't cover what we now know today as the entire Plainfield Fire District. I've read that a fire that consumed the Tillinghast General Store in the early 1920s prompted Plainfield residents to organize fire protection to serve beyond the limits of Lawton's Fire Company. Although just beyond their response area, Lawton Fire Company did respond and put forth a pretty valiant effort, but the property was considered a total loss. In 1925, a large number of Plainfield businessmen, professional men, and otherwise concerned citizens convened at Union Hall on present-day Norwich Road and agreed to serve as volunteer firefighters. The exact date in 1925 is unknown. I haven't been able to determine that through any of my research. One prominent businessman, John Kingsley, who operated a large dry goods store in Plainfield Junction adjacent to the Lawton Fire Company on Railroad Avenue, managed to secure a 12-cylinder Packard touring car, which Mr. Fred Lediger converted into the Plainfield Fire Company's first fire truck. Both fire companies operated out of the same station at 48 Railroad Avenue, while Lawton Fire Company remained in existence until 1936, when the Great Depression forced the closure of the mill. While co-located at the same station, it's said that the fire companies were rivals, however worked very well together, battling blazes. Moosop's Fire Department, having its roots as the Hill Hose Company, which was another mill fire company, was said to be the next closest mutual aid and often responded and worked with the Plainfield Volunteers and the Lawton Fire Company. It's also said that a partition existed inside of the fire station which divided the members and the equipment between the Plainfield Fire Company and the Lawton Fire Company. So certainly there was, while they existed in a location together, there was certainly a divide between the two. Mr. Fred Lediger, who you remember as converting the Packard into the first fire truck, was named as the first Plainfield Fire Chief. From 1925 through 1937, the Volunteer Fire Company managed to survive on its own by holding Thanksgiving turkey raffles, staging dances, and soliciting funds from door to door. Fundraising efforts enabled the members to obtain a used Cadillac, which they equipped with several portable pumps. In 1936 saw the closure of the Lawton Mill Corporation, largely due to the Great Depression. That same year, Lawton Fire Company turned over their Ford fire truck in what began a merger of both of the companies. Difficult economic times saw further organization to sustain the Plainfield Volunteer Fire Company, coming in the form of establishing a fire district on April 30th, 1937. And this was done for taxation purposes. The first levied fire tax in Plainfield was 1 mil, totaling approximately $11,000, which was their first operating budget. In 1941, the Plainfield Fire District officially purchased the Railroad Avenue station from Lawton Mills for a total of $2,000. Special meeting on April 11th, 1942, amended the fire district's charter to assume responsibility for street lighting which is a responsibility that our fire district still retains. Today, we maintain approximately 400 streetlights with a total budget of $75,000. As an aside, we also have 160 fire hydrants, which comes at an assessed fee from Connecticut Water of about $260,000. And the infrastructure that's in place for fire protection, so for our hydrants, also is the infrastructure that delivers a lot of the domestic water to your household. So indirectly, the fire company is paying for that. We're assessed per hydrant per month, and then a charge of per lineal foot of pipe in the ground. You add all that up, and that's how you come up with the $260,000 that's in our budget line item for Connecticut Water. So the way that I understand it is fire protection, street lighting, and water delivery were all essential community services that the local Plainfield government at the time either couldn't financially or wasn't financially capable of, or just wasn't interested in assuming the responsibility for. So what gave birth out of that was the strong four-village model that we see today with 4 separate fire districts, all of which primarily have the same responsibility for fire protection, street lighting, and municipal water delivery. The Railroad Avenue station was renovated and added on to accommodate the growing needs of the volunteer company and serve them until moving to our current station at 620 Norwich Road. In 1966, Plainfield Fire taxpayers authorized the fire district to expend $110,000 to construct and furnish a new fire station, along with $11,000 to acquire 2 parcels of land for the new station to sit on. In June of 1967, the Railroad Ave fire station was sold for a total of $7,257. The current fire station, which started out as 4.5 bays, has been added on to and renovated significantly 5 different times to accommodate the department's evolving needs. As it sits now, the station is 7.5 bays, housing 1 engine, 1 tanker, 1 tower, 1 rescue, 1 brush truck, 1 service truck, our special operations trailer, and a UTV. Casual discussions about constructing a new fire station have been had at the fire district level for about 15 years. Once I arrived in Plainfield in 2017, I led a pretty serious push to identify a lot of the critical health and safety deficiencies with our current station that pose a threat to our most valuable resource, which is our members. The current design, our current fire station design offers no protection against members incurring occupational cancer. Space limitations require members to gear up less than a foot away from 30,000-pound apparatus pulling out of the station to respond to calls. The National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, is an organization that comes up with over 300 consensus standards that provide for safety of the fire protection industry. A lot of that is what drives some of the safety features that we have here today with the equipment that we use, but also inside of that is the consensus standards that drive fire station design and what makes fire stations compliant. Our current station, we have recognized as being not compliant. We continue to operate out of there, but as you know, we're taking some steps to hopefully remedy that. I just wanted to share with you some of the deficiencies that we've identified and some of the consensus standards that we're trying to meet for the health and safety of the members. So NFPA 1500 is a standard for fire department occupational safety, health, and wellness programs. This impacts fire station design in the area of cancer prevention, firefighter health and fitness, and mental well-being. The current design lacks positive pressure ventilation to remove harmful contaminants from the air. We do not have a dedicated firefighter fitness area. We don't have any dedicated area for functional learning or academic fire training. We don't have any type of post-incident decontamination area. And the turnout gear, we don't have any dedicated area to store that away from the most harmful thing in the fire station is the exhaust from the fire trucks. The gear is located right along with the truck. So the truck starts up, the exhaust, blows on the gear, and now the firefighters using this equipment to stay safe, but they're carrying around all the carcinogens that have accumulated on their gear from being stored in, along with the apparatus. There are some other significant NFPA standards that that impact the health and safety of the members. We will cover in informational sessions when we talk about why we feel that the need for a new fire station is so great and why we're pursuing this. On May 9th, we were pleased to announce the purchase of 12 Railroad Avenue in Plainfield for $300,000 from the St. Andre Bessette Parish under the leadership of Reverend Greg Jednacki. The May 3rd closing got us 2.93 acres containing the former St. John's Catholic School. That ended nearly 4 years of talks to acquire the property. It originally started under Father Tad. COVID happened and slowed those discussions, but once Father Greg ended up at the parish, the discussions between the parish and the fire district really gained some traction, and I really attribute this mutually beneficial deal between the two parties to the to Father Greg and his enthusiasm toward making this opportunity realistic. It's important for us to let everybody know that the fire district recognizes the property's historical significance and the strong community ties that so many people have to the property. The plan to demolish the building will be done in the most respectful way to that. We're going to make every effort to preserve a lot of the exterior religious markings and to the best extent possible incorporate those into our proposed fire station that we're going to build on the site. We've let former students and parishioners know that at a point we will make bricks available if they want to obtain them as mementos of the school. One of the other things that is very important for us to let folks know about is we have an agreement between the fire district and the parish for perpetual use of the parking spaces. Part of the deal is that we will make 100 parking spots available for use during sanctioned church events. So we understand that the parishioners need that. With the other places of worship closing, a lot of people attend church at St. John's, and we will make those parking spaces available so that they can attend. The current makeup of the volunteer fire department is 35 members, led by myself. Just a quick snapshot of so that you understand how busy we are. In the calendar year 2022, the fire company skillfully responded to 778 incidents. 67% of those were EMS in nature or motor vehicle accidents. 67% is about 522 of those incidents. 16% being fire related, or 124. The other times we're either responding to another hazardous condition that's not a fire, or we're rendering some type of public service. The average attendance at all of those answered incidents is a little over nine members at each. So the current volunteer workforce, if you will, of the fire company is very strong. We're very eager to respond to calls and render whatever service or assistance anybody calls on us for. Of all of those responses, we gave mutual aid 51 times, and we received mutual aid, or we received assistance 39 times. So until such point we're unable to sustain the volunteer fire department model, we're going to continue to serve in that capacity. I do forecast, and I see it in some of the other departments that I deal with through the dispatch center. They're getting to the point where they have to put paid personnel in their fire stations to handle their calls, just because of the significant decline in volunteerism. And we're not at that point yet, but the proposed fire station will incorporate that. The architectural firm that we're using is Jakunski Humes from Berlin, Connecticut. They specialize in the design of fire, police, and public safety complexes, and they have conducted a space needs assessment that took a snapshot of how we operate, and the proposed building should be able to accommodate the growth of our department and the needs of our department for in excess of 50 years. So we feel very comfortable with the direction that we're going. We certainly want to be fully transparent. We'll answer any questions. We plan to have a number of informational sessions ahead of any type of vote related to appropriating the funds. And we hope that we can demonstrate the need and get the support of our taxpayers. Like I had said earlier, I do have some of the historical reference material that I went through available to view. Inside of the shadow box, I had acquired some very old Plainfield Fire Company badge, as well as a Lawton Mills Fire Company badge. The framed picture standing up is the current membership at the VJ Day Parade last year. And then again, some of the gear that I have up here is standard turnout gear that's issued to the members. I do have our current self-contained breathing apparatus. some of the communications devices that we have, thermal imaging camera, and then as another form of communication with the dispatch center, like similar to what you see with some of the police departments, all of the fire trucks communicate through an electronic means back to the dispatch center. So I have an example of that up here. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I hope you got something out of it. Does anybody have any questions for me, sir?
Excuse me, sorry. I would assume that the worst fires this town's ever seen, off the top of my head, would be the mill fires, you know, Inner Royal, Brunswick Mills. And besides those, what do you think is the most intense inferno you've ever dealt with personally?
Yeah. So, obviously the most tragic ones are those where there's some type of loss of life. I can distinctly remember the fire that we responded to at 885 Norwich Road. That was
With the young child?
Yep, that was a young child and his grandfather that passed in that fire. But those circumstances were, you know, the fire was so far advanced, while our response was very quick and very capable. You know, unfortunately, I think the storyline was written there. But yeah, you know, those are the fires that are certainly impactful to us and impactful to the members. But as far as it's said that the Inner Royal fire was one of the most expensive fires in the state of Connecticut to remedy. So certainly, yeah.
Lessons learned from that.
Yep.
Have incorporated into the new building things like equipment for washing contaminated turnout gear and a lot of other things associated with as much of a contamination fire. Has that all been worked in? Is that kind of standard in the requirements now for a station?
It certainly is. A lot of those NFPA standards that I was talking about, I had some others listed there, but I in the interest of not getting too granular with everybody, there are standards for decontamination areas, even specifically down to how many washing machines that you should have. Plainfield was very fortunate. We acquired one of the first gear washing machines in the entire area. At the time, you got one. The standard now requires two, because this gear has an outer shell, this tan that you see here, but the blue on the inside, which provides the thermal protection and a moisture barrier on this side. This stuff now has to be washed in separate washers as to minimize the cross-contamination. So just things like that, the standards as they're written, when you get into a construction project, you're required to build a compliant building. And when you start observing all of the regulations that are out there, that's what drives up your square footage. The proposed fire station that we would build is 19,200 square feet, but we didn't just pick that number out of the sky. We told the architectural firm, this is how many members we have, this is how many trucks we have, you know, this is what we need to do. And through that space needs assessment process, they come up with you know, a floor plan and a size. So it was a very guided process. But yes, you're correct.
Travis, did I miss, how big is the current station, square foot?
So when it was originally built, it was just the top section and then the hall down below. It was a little over 4,000 square feet. It's since been added on to 5 different times. So our district chairman, Mike Supernaut, always makes the joke, it's like the old farmhouse when you have another child, you just scab on another room. And if you look at our fire station, it's very much like that. It's just bay after bay after bay. So, you know, my hope through this project is we did our research, we looked at what our 50-year needs are going to be, and this building will be complete and serve us well into the future. We're going to hopefully do it right the first time and be done with it. Sir?
I know that there's been a lot of mixed feelings on the demolition of St. John's School because it has so many ties with this town.
Yep.
But have you guys, I know you released a few selected photos of the upstairs. Tom here graciously allowed me to do a little walkthrough last year.
Yep.
And it's in rough shape, that's to
Certainly.
say the least, in the most polite way.
Yep.
Have you considered doing a video walkthrough with the fire department and maybe some town officials just to show people the extent of damage that this building is
Yep.
suffering from?
Yeah, definitely. We would definitely consider doing that.
I feel like that'd be a good way to get the public more so on your side rather than just the reactionary of, oh, they're tearing down St. John's School.
Correct.
Just
Correct.
because once you walk in there, I walked in with the same exact mentality of that of, why are they doing this?
Yep.
And then I saw it and I was like,
This building's
this
unsafe.
building is unsafe and the cost to rehabilitate it is not something the town or the diocese probably wants to undertake.
Yep.
And the fact is that, unfortunately, say the annex, you know, when things are let go, the elements take hold,
Yep.
it's just easier to just cut your losses. But this is an example where the plan is to make something mutually beneficial to the town,
Yep.
where it's not just become an empty field or a parking lot,
Yep.
per se.
Yep, correct. And I mean, one of the great motivating factors from the St. Andre Bessette Parish was knowing that the property was going to go back to public service. You know, the same thing happened with the 911 center when we acquired the chapel in East Killingly. The diocese was ecstatic knowing that, you know, that what we're going to put there is going to serve public and do good for so many years. So, and you know, the other big controversial piece about us going back to Railroad Avenue is the location, the traffic, and the train. All of those things we've considered, and in an explanation that I gave to somebody who questioned us on social media about that is, you know, as it stands right now, when there's a call, the firemen or the firefighters respond to the station, they get in the trucks, and they don't know what's going on down at the tracks. So they get in the trucks, they turn onto Railroad Ave, they get down there, and now they're in the traffic jam. And then they say, oh, I have to go around to Cemetery Road. And then, or, you know, if it's on the south end of town, they go out as far as Lowe's Way and Lily Bridge Road to get around. With us being down on Railroad Avenue, we'll have that awareness of what's going on downtown. Everybody says, well, you know, traffic backs up, and yes, it does, but I mean, emergency vehicles will get through. People will yield to emergency vehicles.
You guys have all have bull bars too in the front of it too, so.
Well,
worst case
you know,
scenario.
yeah, we certainly wouldn't want to get that. But you know, it has been considered from our point, the location. But in terms of looking at other property, other viable property to locate a fire station, there just really isn't any. And we had focused on that property, as you heard, for quite a while. So we were happy that it finally worked.
Something you said made me think. Does the fire department have any control over the train? If you have an emergency, can you get the train to get out of the way, or no?
So what I will say is any of the times that the members have responded through there to get to the station, or the trucks have gone that way and run into the train, the folks that operate it have been extremely respectful of the fact that we need to get somewhere quickly. And they stop whatever procedure they're doing and move out of the way as quickly as they can. So they're certainly very aware and accommodating to us. But the way that I understand it is the railroad industry is so heavily regulated by, you know, the federal government, and I think many efforts have been made at the town level to approach them, and there's really nothing that's ever come of it. So the short answer would be no.
It would be good though for people to know that at least they're respectful of emergency vehicles. Because
Yep.
I think we probably, most of us know about the Facebook train stories.
Sure.
And probably most people are worried that if something happened, you might not get there because of the train. So maybe it's good for people to know that.
Right, but, yeah, and you are correct, but I would argue that regardless of where we respond from, we're still gonna have the same problem. So I think relocating the fire station and the response beginning from Railroad Ave would at least give us the early awareness to pick a better route.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think it's great that you'll be able to kind of see ahead of time
Yep.
where you need to go.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is there a projected date when you'll start demolition on the school?
So, the purchase process took a little longer than we had expected. And we were originally slated to purchase and begin demolition last summer. But here we are now. I have a meeting with the demolition company this week, or what remains of this week, and the abatement process will probably happen in late summer with an early fall demolition timeframe. Once the project starts, once the demolition starts, it should take about 45 days, and what will be left is a level, empty lot,
The trees will be removed too.
unfortunately. Unfortunately, and you know, the copper beech trees, I mean, you know, we're aware, we're aware of the significance. And, you know, unfortunately, there's just some things that we can't get around. Whether it's a silver lining to this or not, if you take a close look at the center of that copper beech tree, it is dying. So, we do have plans to, when that tree comes down, we're going to save the wood. We want to build a table out of it and some other things that we can incorporate into the station.
It's like the Charter Oak, you know, gone but never forgotten.
Yeah.
Are you aware of the things in that building that need abatement?
Yes, so we did have, even long prior to agreeing to purchase it, we had Mystic Air, which is a pretty prominent agency in terms of hazardous materials awareness and doing building hygiene reports. Go through there. That is who St. John's School used when they were operating, the Mystic Air Company, to create them a plan for managing the hazards inside the building. So yes, we are aware that there is some floor tile that needs to be abated, and window caulking, and the cores of some of the doors. They used asbestos for.
Are there things that can be saved, like the woodwork and the shelving, or that can be used, repurposed?
Yeah, I mean, there is some stuff, but, you know, pretty similar to what Taylor had said.
Water damage over the years, and the roof leaking through, with
Yeah.
all the cabinets
But
and stuff.
as Luis, I think, knows, we did have a parishioner, Monique, who, they had saved
Some lockers.
some of the old lockers and already
And made
repurposed it.
covered doors out of it.
Oh, it looked beautiful.
Came out
It
nice.
painted white and everything. I saw that on social media.
Some stuff has been saved.
I have the flag for the class.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, certainly, we recognize the historical significance of the building, and we want to try to be as respectful as possible with the demolition process and also incorporating some of the building contents into our new building.
Is there, has there been talks of perhaps putting like a small Plainfield history room in there for just your fire history? That you could potentially charge like maybe a suggested donation to help increase raising more funds for your volunteers and such?
Yeah, we do have plans for a public lobby, which is something that we don't have now. And we do want to incorporate the department history and the town history into that. So I think it would be a good opportunity for us to do that in that space.
I was just wondering, last question for me is, what are the plans for the current firehouse?
So, similar to what you had heard, they did with the Lawton / Plainfield fire station on Railroad Ave when we moved to Norwich Road is we will list it as a real estate sale.
Okay.
Yep. The hope is, so we purchased the school property for $300,000. The demolition cost is $310,000. The hope is the sale of the existing fire station will wash those costs. So, I mean, somebody who, it's a great building, you know, as far as garage space and the the possibilities of what somebody could do in there. So, we think it will be attractive and sell relatively quickly.
There's a wonderful thing about plan for demolition. This is the first I ever hear of anybody planning demolition who is talking about the history of the building and its importance. The fact it has been considered, and I've seen and I know what the conditions are, there's no other choice. From a historic standpoint, you come to a turning point where the historic people cannot tell you you have to save something that's not salvageable.
Yeah.
And to have that already been taken into consideration is a very important thing, that it's not taken lightly, and I'm glad it's already in the plans.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, we knew when we selected that property, we have to do this right, because so many people are attached to that building. And you know, I mean, my fire members are no different. They went there. It's got its roots in so many families and households that we have to be respectful in how we proceed with that property. Yeah.
Would you consider giving a copy of your speech to the Historical Society? Because you have a lot of nice history in it.
Yeah, so the one thing that this has done is I will work with Mrs. Gersick, and we will compile this into some organized delivery, and yes, I will do something like that.
And I still have a lot of the original sources that she came and that we worked with. She went months and months up here with me on different things, and they're still available for look back. They haven't been locked up again yet.
Yep.
But a wonderful historic presentation, something that I don't think anybody has stopped and gone at it so systematically from the very beginning. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Tom?
So one thing that Ruth and I had talked about is once you're able to get that together, as far as some summary of basically, we're looking to put together basically a binder, and it's kind of would be intended for like new residents of the town, somebody who come, because we get those all the time, or somebody's new to town, they have no idea that there's 4 fire districts and the history of the 4 departments. Is kind of a consolidated summary into a binder where you could have like 4 tabs in it for each one of the departments and have just kind of like a summary, and obviously if they want to know more beyond that, they could reach out to the department directly, but currently we don't have anything like that in the history room. So we thought that would be nice to have.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, and, you know, I have a close relationship with the folks in the other departments, and, you know, those fire chiefs are just as busy as I am. And I don't know that they have a resource like a Mrs. Gersick in their department to do that, but I see an awful lot of value in it. The further I dug into this process to put my notes together to talk to you, you know, it's an endeavor just in itself, learning about
Very revealing.
my own agency. Yeah.
And that's just one of 4 departments.
Right,
The
right.
Atwood Hose Company is just as vivid and crazy history as that
Yep,
does. And,
yep.
I think Atwood Hose has something, because when the society did a big display at their last celebration, they loaned down some of the stuff from their offices to we had the whole basement of the Atwood Hose there that we set up for them. And they have a lot of stuff. I don't know how well organized they have, but they have a lot about their own history, and that would very nicely dovetail.
And I think that we have a lot, we just need to organize it.
Yeah, but you have priorities.
You mentioned Atwood. The C&M mill was built in 1850. So, yeah, they probably have a lot more
Yeah.
with their fire
They have some
company
older ones
there.
with great
A
interest.
lot more
That
history, yeah.
The Shabbat Bond burned several times. I was not really aware of that until they told me, one of the old fellows, that one and this one was later. Very, very interesting to work with them all. I want to thank you very, very much. This was well done.